Let me tell you about the night I stopped being a fool in my own house. My wife had just given me the same tired excuse for the 35th time in 2 months. I'm not in the mood. Those words had become her favorite weapon, and I was done pretending they didn't cut deep. But here's the thing about being a man who respects himself. You don't count rejections like some pathetic scoreboard. You recognize patterns, and you act on them. So that Thursday evening, instead of sulking off to the couch like she expected, I sat down across from her and looked her dead in the eye. "We need to talk," I said, my voice calm but firm. And I mean really talk, not this surface-level nonsense we've been doing. She barely looked up from her phone. "About what?" "I'm tired, honey. Can't this wait until tomorrow?" "No, it can't." I reached over and gently but firmly took her phone, setting it aside. "When was the last time we were intimate? And don't give me some vague answer." "When?" The question caught her off guard. She shifted uncomfortably, finally making actual eye contact. "I don't know, a few weeks ago." "Try 2 months," I said. 2 months of I'm not in the mood. I have a headache. I'm too stressed. Every single time I've tried to connect with my own wife, you've had an excuse ready. Her defenses went up immediately. "So what, you're keeping track now?" "That's pretty pathetic." I leaned back and smiled. Not a warm smile, but the kind that lets someone know they just made a mistake. Pathetic? You know what's pathetic? A wife who treats her husband like a roommate she's annoyed by. A woman who promises to love and honor someone and then acts like his touch is a burden. "That's not fair," she shot back. "I've been stressed with work, and you know that. You can't just demand sex whenever you want it." "Demand?" I stood up, maintaining complete composure. "When have I ever demanded anything? I've been patient. I've been understanding. I've given you space, tried to help with your stress, suggested date nights, offered to talk about whatever's bothering you. But every single gesture gets met with rejection." She opened her mouth to argue, but I held up my hand. "I'm not finished. See, here's what you don't seem to understand. This isn't about sex. This is about respect. This is about feeling wanted by the person who's supposed to want me most in this world." The room went quiet except for the hum of the refrigerator in the kitchen. She was staring at me now, really looking at me, probably for the first time in months. "You think I don't notice how you light up when you get texts from your friends? How you have energy for social media, for phone calls with your sister, for everything except your husband? You think I don't see how you dress up when you go out with the girls, but can't be bothered to shower when it's just us at home?" Her face was getting red now, but I wasn't done. "I'm going to make this simple for you," I continued, my voice steady and cold. "Either you want to be married to me, or you don't. There's no middle ground where you get the security and benefits of having a husband while treating him like he's invisible." "You're being dramatic," she said, but her voice was smaller now. "Am I? Then prove it. Show me I'm wrong. Show me that you actually want to be my wife and not just someone who happens to live in the same house." I moved toward the door, then turned back. "But understand this. I'm not going to beg for scraps of affection from my own wife. I know my worth, even if you've forgotten yours." She was quiet for a long moment, then said, "And if I can't? If I'm just not ready right now?" I looked at her with complete clarity. "Then I'll find someone who is ready. Someone who sees what you're throwing away and appreciates it." "Are you threatening me?" "I'm informing you. There's a difference." I headed for the stairs. "I'm going to bed. You can join me if you want to start fixing this marriage, or you can stay down here and think about whether you actually want to be married at all." I didn't wait for her response. A man who knows his value doesn't negotiate with someone who's forgotten it. He simply makes his position clear and lets them decide if they want to rise to meet it. That night, she didn't come upstairs. And for the first time in months, I slept peacefully. Because finally, the cards were on the table, and we were going to find out what kind of woman I'd actually married. 3 days passed after our confrontation, and she was playing the victim perfectly, sighing dramatically whenever I entered the room, giving me the cold shoulder like I was the villain in this story. But here's what she didn't realize. I wasn't the same man who used to chase after her approval anymore. Friday morning, she left for work without saying goodbye. Nothing new there, but something was different about how she guarded her phone, how she angled it away from me when texting. A smart man doesn't ignore red flags, he investigates them. While she was in the shower, I did what any intelligent husband would do when his wife starts acting suspicious. I checked our phone records online. What I found made everything crystal clear. Over the past 2 months, the exact same period she'd been not in the mood, there were hundreds of texts to a number I didn't recognize. Late-night calls, Messages sent while she was sitting right next to me, claiming to be too tired to talk. I didn't get emotional. I got strategic. I ran the number through a reverse lookup. David Martinez. A quick social media search showed me everything I needed to know. Fitness trainer, divorced, the kind of guy who posed shirtless gym selfies with motivational quotes. And there, in his recent posts, were likes and comments from my wife's account. Heart emojis. Fire emojis. Things she hadn't sent me in years. When she came downstairs that morning, wrapped in her bathrobe, I was sitting at the kitchen table with a cup of coffee and printouts of the phone records. "Good morning," I said calmly. "Sleep well?" "Fine," she mumbled, moving toward the coffee maker. "Interesting reading material this morning." I held up the papers. "Did you know our phone plan shows detailed records of all calls and texts?" She froze. I watched her reflection in the kitchen window as her face went pale. "I'm not sure what you're implying," she said, but her voice was shaking. "I'm not implying anything. I'm stating facts." I spread the papers on the table. 437 text messages to David Martinez in the past 2 months. Some as late as midnight, some as early as 6 a.m. What kind of fitness advice requires that level of communication? She turned around, and I could see her scrambling for an explanation. "He's helping me with a workout plan. It's not what you think." "Really?" "Because his Instagram tells a different story. All those heart emojis you've been sending his posts. Telling him how amazing he looks. Commenting about wanting to train harder." I stood up, my voice never rising above conversational level. The same woman who hasn't complimented her husband in months has been sending love emojis to another man. "You went through my social media? That's a violation of privacy." I laughed, actually laughed. "Privacy? In a marriage? The same privacy you violated when you started having an emotional affair while rejecting your husband night after night. It's not an affair. We're just friends. Friends don't text at midnight. Friends don't send heart emojis. And friends definitely don't make their husbands feel unwanted while giving their attention to someone else." I walked closer to her, and she backed against the counter. "But you know what the most interesting part is? Your texts to him are flirty, engaged, excited. Meanwhile, you can barely look at me." She was crying now, but they weren't tears of remorse. They were tears of someone who got caught. "I want to see your phone," I said simply. "No, that wasn't a request. You can't make me show you anything." I smiled again, that same cold smile from 3 nights ago. "You're absolutely right. I can't make you do anything. Just like I can't make you want your husband, can't make you respect your marriage, and can't make you be honest." I picked up the phone records and folded them neatly. "But I can make decisions based on who you're choosing to be." "What does that mean?" "It means I'm done pretending this is about you being tired or stressed. This is about you checking out of our marriage while keeping me around as backup." "Well, congratulations. You just lost your backup." I headed for the door, then turned back one final time. "You have until Sunday to decide if you want to fight for this marriage. That means cutting all contact with your fitness trainer, showing me complete transparency with your phone and social media, and actually acting like a wife instead of a roommate with benefits who doesn't even provide the benefits. And if I don't, then Monday morning, I'm calling a divorce attorney. And trust me, these phone records will make for very interesting evidence about why our marriage failed." She was sobbing now, but I felt nothing but clarity. A man doesn't negotiate with betrayal. He exposes it, addresses it directly, and gives one chance for accountability. After that, he moves forward with or without the person who disrespected him. Sunday was 2 days away. Time enough for her to show me who she really was, and more importantly, who she wanted to be. Sunday came faster than she expected, and slower than I hoped. I spent the weekend watching her squirm, watching her delete and retype messages, watching her stare at her phone like it held the answers to questions she was too coward to ask herself. Saturday night, she tried the desperate wife routine. Suddenly, she was interested in cooking dinner, asking about my day, even suggesting we watch a movie together. But it felt hollow, like someone reading lines from a script they didn't believe in. Sunday evening, I found her in the living room, clutching her phone with tears in her eyes. "Well," I said, taking a seat across from her. "I blocked his number," she whispered. "Show me." She handed me her phone with shaking hands. I scrolled through her contacts, her messages, her social media. David Martinez was gone from her contacts, but I noticed something else. She'd only blocked him that afternoon. The message history showed they'd been texting right up until 3 hours ago. "What did you tell him when you blocked him?" I asked. She looked away. "That we couldn't talk anymore because my husband found out. Not because you realized you were wrong." Not because you wanted to save your marriage. Because your husband found out. I set her phone down and leaned back. You know what that tells me? It tells me you're not sorry you did it. You're sorry you got caught. That's not true. Then why did you wait until the last possible moment? Why were you texting him up until 3 hours ago? What were you discussing with another man while your marriage was hanging by a thread? She broke down completely. He was trying to convince me to leave you. He said you were controlling and that I deserved better. There it was. The truth always comes out when someone's backed into a corner. And what did you tell him? I told him I was confused. That maybe he was right. I stood up, and for the first time all weekend, I felt completely calm. Thank you for being honest. Finally, what does that mean? It means you just told me everything I needed to know. You entertained the idea of leaving me for another man. You discussed our marriage problems with him instead of me. And even now, after getting caught, part of you thinks he might be right. She reached for my hand, but I pulled it away. Please, we can work through this. I made a mistake, but I chose you. I blocked him. You blocked him because I gave you an ultimatum, not because you wanted to. There's a difference. I walked to the window and looked out at our neighborhood, at the life we built that she was so willing to throw away. Here's what's going to happen. Tomorrow morning, I'm meeting with a divorce attorney. You said you'd give me a chance. I did give you a chance. I gave you the chance to come clean, to take responsibility, to show me you understood what you'd done wrong. Instead, you lied by omission, kept texting him until the very last second, and admitted you considered leaving me for him. I turned back to face her. A woman who respects her marriage doesn't need ultimatums to do the right thing. She does it because she values what she has. But I do value what we have. No, you value the security of what we have. The house, the lifestyle, the safety net. But you don't value me. If you did, you wouldn't have spent 2 months rejecting me while flirting with another man. She was pleading now, promising to change, swearing it would never happen again. But I'd heard enough promises from her to last a lifetime. I'm not angry, I said, and I meant it. I'm disappointed, but I'm not angry. Anger is what you feel when someone you respect lets you down. What I feel is clarity. I headed upstairs to pack a bag. I'm staying at a hotel tonight. You can stay here while we figure out the logistics of separating our lives. Where are you going? Somewhere I can think clearly without listening to promises from someone who's already proven they can't keep them. As I packed, she followed me around, alternating between tears and anger, begging and blaming. But my mind was made up. A man who knows his worth doesn't accept being someone's second choice, and he definitely doesn't stick around to see if his wife can resist temptation when given another opportunity. I'd given her every chance to choose our marriage. Instead, she chose to explore her options while keeping me as a backup plan. Well, backup plans don't get to call the shots, and I was done being anyone's safety net. The hotel room that night was quiet, peaceful. No drama, no crying, no negotiations. Just a man who'd finally remembered that he deserved better than settling for someone who saw him as disposable. Tomorrow, I'd start building a life with someone who actually wanted to be in it. The divorce papers were filed by Wednesday. My attorney was impressed by how organized I was, how clear my documentation, how calm my demeanor. Most men in your situation are emotional wrecks, he said. You seem relieved. He was right. I felt like I'd been holding my breath for years and could finally exhale. Thursday evening, I was at a work networking event downtown. I'd been attending these monthly gatherings for years, but always left early to get home to a wife who barely acknowledged my presence. Tonight was different. Tonight I stayed. That's when I met her. She was standing by the bar, professional but approachable, laughing at something a colleague had said. When our eyes met across the room, she didn't look away like my wife had been doing for months. She smiled, a real smile that reached her eyes. You're the marketing director for the Henderson account, right? She said when I approached. I'm the project coordinator for the tech implementation. We should have met months ago. Well, better late than never, I replied, extending my hand. Though I have to admit, I usually don't stick around these events long enough to meet anyone. What changed tonight? I looked at her directly. My priorities shifted recently. We talked for 2 hours. About work, about books, about travel plans and favorite restaurants. She was intelligent, engaged, asking thoughtful questions, and actually listening to my answers. When I made a joke, she laughed genuinely instead of giving me that polite, distracted smile I'd grown accustomed to at home. I should probably head out, she said around 10 p.m. Early meeting tomorrow. Let me walk you to your car, I offered. As we stepped outside, she turned to me. This might be forward, but would you like to grab coffee sometime? I'd love to continue our conversation without the networking crowd. Here's the thing about being a man who's rediscovered his worth. You recognize when someone genuinely wants your company. I'd like that. Though I should mention, I'm currently going through a divorce. Recently separated? Filed this week, actually. She nodded thoughtfully. I appreciate the honesty. For what it's worth, whoever let you go made a serious mistake. That night, I went back to my hotel room with her number in my phone and a reminder of what it felt like to be appreciated. Not desired out of obligation or guilt, but genuinely wanted for who I was. We met for coffee Saturday morning. What was supposed to be an hour turned into 4. She told me about her work, her goals, her thoughts on everything from current events to childhood memories. More importantly, she asked about mine and listened to the answers. Your ex-wife must have been crazy, she said over our 3rd cup of coffee. You're intelligent, funny, and clearly successful. What woman walks away from that? She didn't walk away. She just stopped showing up while pretending to still be there. That's worse, honestly. At least if she'd left, you'd have known where you stood. Exactly. This woman understood in 5 minutes what my wife had refused to see in years. Over the next 2 weeks, we met regularly. Coffee dates, lunch meetings, evening walks through downtown. Nothing inappropriate. I was careful about that. My divorce wasn't final, and I wasn't going to give my soon-to-be ex-wife any ammunition. But I allowed myself to remember what it felt like to be pursued instead of tolerated. She texted me good morning. She asked about my day and actually cared about the answer. When I suggested restaurants, she was enthusiastic instead of indifferent. When I made plans, she showed up early instead of canceling last minute. You know what I like about you, she told me one evening as we walked along the riverfront. You don't apologize for taking up space. You don't ask permission to have opinions. You're just confident in who you are. It was funny. I'd been confident all along. My wife had just made me forget it. Meanwhile, my phone was buzzing constantly with messages from home. My wife had apparently realized that I wasn't coming back to beg for her attention. The messages started desperate, then angry, then desperate again. Please come home. We can work this out. You're being ridiculous. Every marriage has problems. I made one mistake and you're throwing away everything we built. I deleted them without responding. A man who's found someone who actually wants him doesn't waste time explaining himself to someone who took him for granted. 2 weeks after filing for divorce, I was sitting across from a woman who lit up when I walked into a room, who laughed at my jokes, who made plans with me instead of excuses. The contrast was so stark it was almost comical. My wife had trained me to expect rejection, to apologize for wanting affection, to be grateful for scraps of attention. This woman reminded me that none of that was normal. She reminded me what I deserved. And what I deserved was someone who chose me every day, not someone who kept me around as a convenience while exploring other options. 3 weeks into my new reality, I decided it was time to collect my remaining belongings from the house. I'd been strategic about it, showing up during the day when she was at work, avoiding unnecessary confrontation. But this time was different. This time, I wanted her to see exactly what she'd lost. I arrived at 7 p.m. on a Tuesday. Her car was in the driveway, and through the kitchen window, I could see her pacing on the phone, probably complaining to one of her friends about how unreasonable I was being. When I walked through the front door, she ended her call immediately. "You're here," she said, like she couldn't believe it. "I'm here to get the rest of my things," I replied, heading straight for the stairs. "Wait." Her voice was different now, smaller, uncertain. "Can we talk?" "About what?" "About us. About fixing this." She followed me upstairs. "I know I made mistakes, but we can work through this. I've been thinking a lot, and I realize how wrong I was." I continued packing my clothes methodically. "What exactly were you wrong about?" "About taking you for granted. About not appreciating what we had. About him." "David Martinez, you mean? The fitness trainer you were planning to leave me for?" She flinched. "I was never going to leave you for him." I stopped packing and looked at her directly. "You told him you were confused about our marriage. You entertained his suggestions that I was controlling. You were texting him at midnight while your husband slept alone. What would you call that? A mistake. A stupid, horrible mistake that I regret every day. You regret getting caught. There's a difference." She moved closer, and I noticed she was wearing the dress I'd bought her for our anniversary last year. The one she'd claimed was too fancy to wear anywhere. "I've changed. I want to show you how much you mean to me." "Really? How?" I've been thinking about you differently. Missing you. Missing us." She reached for my hand. "I'm ready now. I want to be close to you again." I almost laughed. After months of rejection, after emotional cheating, after considering leaving me for another man, now she was ready. Now that I'd filed for divorce and stopped chasing her approval, suddenly she remembered she had a husband. That's convenient timing, I said, pulling my hand away. What do you mean? I mean for 2 months, you weren't in the mood 35 times in a row. Now that I'm leaving, suddenly you've rediscovered your libido. I was stressed before, but now I see what's important. What's important? Or who's no longer available? Her face fell. What's that supposed to mean? I finished packing my last bag and zipped it closed. It means I've moved on. It means I've remembered what it's like to be wanted by someone who doesn't need ultimatums to show affection. Moved on? You mean you're seeing someone? I mean I'm living my life instead of begging for scraps from someone who checked out of our marriage months ago. She was panicking now, really panicking. You can't be serious. You filed for divorce 3 weeks ago. You couldn't have moved on that fast. Watch me. This is insane. You're throwing away our marriage because I went through a rough patch. I turned to face her fully. A rough patch? You emotionally cheated on me. You rejected every attempt I made to connect with you. You made me feel unwanted in my own home while flirting with another man. That's not a rough patch. That's a character reveal. But I'm trying to fix it now. Now that it's too late. Now that you've realized what you're losing. But where was this energy when I was actually fighting for us? Where was this motivation when I was begging you to prioritize our marriage? She was crying, but they were tears of desperation, not genuine remorse. Please don't do this. Don't throw us away over one mistake. One mistake. I picked up my bags. The mistake was staying as long as I did. The mistake was accepting being treated like a roommate you barely tolerated. The mistake was thinking you'd eventually remember you had a husband who loved you. I do love you. No, you love the security I provided. The house, the lifestyle, the safety net of having a husband while you explored other options. But you don't love me. If you did, you wouldn't have needed me to file for divorce to suddenly become interested in saving our marriage. I headed for the door, but she blocked my path. You can't leave. We have too much history together. History is exactly what we have. Past tense. I stepped around her. The difference between you and me is that I know my worth. I know what I bring to a relationship, and I'm not settling for someone who only appreciates it when they're about to lose it. What about the woman you're seeing? Does she know you're still married? I smiled. That same cold smile she'd grown to recognize over the past month. She knows I'm getting divorced from a woman who didn't know what she had until it was gone. And unlike you, she shows up when she says she will. She's interested in my thoughts, my day, my life. She doesn't need ultimatums to treat me with respect. This is just revenge. No, this is self-respect. Revenge would be making you watch me be happy with someone who actually wants me. This is just me refusing to accept less than I deserve. I walked toward my car, and she followed me outside, still pleading, still promising changes that should have happened months ago. You'll regret this, she called out as I loaded my bags. I turned back one final time. The only thing I regret is wasting so much time trying to win back someone who never valued me in the first place. But don't worry, that mistake ends today. As I drove away, I could see her in my rearview mirror, standing in our driveway, finally understanding that some decisions can't be undone. Some disrespect can't be forgiven. And some men won't stick around to be someone's backup plan. 6 months later, I was a completely different man. Not because I'd changed who I was, but because I was finally free to be who I'd always been without someone constantly diminishing it. The divorce was finalized on a Friday. Clean, straightforward, no drawn-out drama. My attorney had done his job well, and her emotional affair with David Martinez had made things very clear-cut. She got to keep the house she'd turned into a cold museum, and I got to keep my dignity and my future. That same evening, I was at dinner with the woman who'd reminded me what being truly wanted felt like. We'd been together for 4 months now, and every day reinforced that I'd made the right choice. How do you feel? She asked as we celebrated with champagne. Free, I said simply. Completely free. My phone buzzed. A text from my ex-wife. Even 6 months later, she was still trying. I saw you posted about your promotion on social media. Congratulations. I always knew you'd succeed. Maybe we could grab coffee and catch up? I showed the message to my girlfriend, who shook her head in amazement. She's still trying? Apparently. Every few weeks, there's another attempt. Last month it was about closure. Before that, it was about wanting to apologize properly. And you never respond? Why would I? A man who's moved forward doesn't look backward to explain himself to people who had their chance. But this particular message annoyed me enough that I decided to respond. Not because I wanted her back, but because some people need absolute clarity. I typed back, "I'm happy, successful, and with someone who actually appreciates me. That's all the closure either of us needs." Her response came within minutes. "You moved on so fast. It's like our marriage meant nothing to you." This time, I called her. She answered on the first ring. "Our marriage meant everything to me," I said calmly. "That's why I fought for it when you were checking out. That's why I confronted you when I found your messages to another man. That's why I gave you ultimatums instead of just walking away quietly. Then why couldn't you forgive me? Because forgiveness isn't the same as foolishness. I forgave you for betraying our marriage, but I wasn't stupid enough to give you another chance to do it again. I would never have done it again. You're right, because I didn't give you the opportunity." I could hear her crying on the other end. "You had 2 months to figure out that rejecting your husband while flirting with another man was wrong. You had years to realize that treating me like an inconvenience wasn't sustainable. You had every chance to choose your marriage. I was confused, and I was patient, until patience became self-disrespect." I looked across the restaurant at my girlfriend, who was giving me space for this conversation but staying close enough to support me. The woman I'm with now has never been confused about wanting me. She's never needed ultimatums to show affection. She's never made me feel like I was bothering her by existing. You think she's better than me? I think she's better for me. And more importantly, I'm better with her. She brings out the best in me because she appreciates it, instead of taking it for granted. There was a long silence. Then, "I miss you. You miss the security I provided. The house, the stability, the husband who was always there no matter how poorly you treated him. But you don't miss me. If you had, you wouldn't have spent months pushing me away." That's not true. Here's what's true. I'm happier now than I was in the last 2 years of our marriage. I'm with someone who lights up when I walk into a room instead of barely looking up from her phone. I'm with someone who makes plans with me instead of excuses. I'm with someone who chose me from day one and keeps choosing me every day. And if she hurts you like I did, then I'll handle it the same way I handled you. With dignity, with self-respect, and with the understanding that I deserve better than settling for someone who doesn't value what I bring to their life. I could hear her sobbing now, but I felt nothing but resolve. "I have to go," I said. "I'm having dinner with someone who actually wants to be here with me." Wait. No more waiting. No more chances. No more conversations about what could have been if you'd made different choices. You made your choices, and I made mine. Now we both get to live with them. I hung up and walked back to our table. My girlfriend looked up at me with genuine concern. "Everything okay?" "Perfect," I said, sitting down and taking her hand. "Absolutely perfect." 2 hours later, we were back at my apartment, the place I'd turned into a home that actually felt welcoming. As she fell asleep next to me, I realized this was what I'd been fighting for all along. Not the drama, not the games, not the constant uncertainty of wondering if I was wanted. Just peace, just mutual respect, just being with someone who was as happy to be there as I was to have her. My ex-wife never contacted me again after that call. Maybe she finally understood that some bridges can't be rebuilt once you've burned them completely. Maybe she realized that a man who knows his worth doesn't negotiate with people who've already shown they don't value it. Either way, it didn't matter. I'd learned the most important lesson a man can learn. Never settle for someone who treats your love like a burden. There are women out there who will see it as the gift it is, and those are the only ones worth your time. I'd gone from being rejected 35 times by someone who was supposed to want me most, to being chosen every single day by someone who actually did. And that's not just a happy ending. That's justice.